Welcome back to the Bench Talk podcast. I am feeling like I have fucking cabin fever because I've been talking to this fucking microphone. Like, this is the fourth time recording this stupid segment. So hopefully your guys' day is going better than mine. Hopefully you're not in your backyard talking to a microphone like a fucking idiot. But I am. And here we are. We're going to talk about wildcats. And we are going to talk about if you think you should get into it or not. Wildcats for me are something that's fun, and I feel like there's a decent amount to this question, and this is something I constantly get asked. Hey, do you think it's worth it? Do you think it's worth doing that 243 Ackley? This is something my old man harps on me about all the fucking time. Oh, and also one of my good buddies' dads. Your phasers and lasers and all this bullshit. You know, every time he sees the rifle builds that I have, it's always fucking hilarious to hear what he has to say. And between, me and some other guys, I may have been accused for compensating for having a small dick, and that's why I have to shoot a 243 Ackley for coyotes versus a 22-250 or a 223. I will say, sometimes a little more kinetic energy on target helps if you do make a shitty shot. I will say that. But I do definitely think that comes down to bullet choice. Not making that like official statement. But yeah, man, wildcat cartridges are fun. And if you are going to look at one that's down the rabbit hole of fire forming and that whole thing, or hydroforming, it is a big undertaking, but there are benefits, and it's what benefit are you chasing? Again, this comes down to personal preference. I think that you could be very successful killing a lot of shit, or killing a lot of steel with a factory rifle with factory ammunition. I think it'd be fine. This is definitely a hobby of yours if you're going down this rabbit hole and you're deciding that this is an undertaking you were going to participate in. And we don't welcome anyone compensating for their small wiener. Specifically, people who are coming here to start wildcatting or shooting a wildcat cartridge, right, should be interested in gaining case capacity for powder, right, H2O capacity, so that you can get more powder in that case, hopefully gain velocity. Right, better case geometry that may improve accuracy, longevity of the case, right? 6-dashers are a great example of that. You may also just want to do a wildcat or start shooting a wildcat because fuck it, you can. The 6-dasher, for people who don't know, is a wildcat technically off of I don't know which BR variant it is, but it's one of the BR variants. And so up until just a couple of years ago, you actually had to either hydroform or fireform all your cases for 6-dasher. So this fireforming thing of legit wildcat cases, like the 6-dasher, has been going around for a while. And the 6-dasher gains a certain amount of case capacity along with forming this, the neck shoulder junction, which very much so has been believed to have a inherent accuracy. And people have been shooting that case for a really long time with great luck, lots of championships with the dasher case. And it's gone from bench rest now to PRS, which is awesome. It's cool to see an older cartridge like that continue to be evolved just based off of the BR cases. Some of the things to think about if you are going to get into wildcatting or you want to pick a wildcat cartridge to shoot, something you have to reload for. And I mentioned this in one of my last podcasts, but is component availability. Hey, what powder am I going to run? Primers, brass. I feel like brass is a huge one. You can find a powder for just about anything. Primers, I don't feel like make some crazy difference. That's just my personal opinion. Maybe if you're a professional and you're shooting 1,000-yard matches, maybe it really does. But for a hobbyist, hunter, or someone who's a hobbyist PRS shooter, I really don't think it matters that much. So brass availability, in my opinion, is hands down the most important thing, right? You need good brass to have normally an accurate load or a consistent load that you can continue to reload for. It definitely helps a lot, right? You, with harder brass, or thicker brass, right? Normally you're getting higher pressure loads, which is great. No one's ever going to complain about a gain in velocity and a gain in hopefully rigidity and strength, which is going to, I would hope, add reloads in the life of that brass, and that's the whole hope. So, I'm always looking for like Lapua, Alpha munitions are kind of the two that I solely use. I have shot and I primarily shoot in my 223 Ackley is the Starline 223 brass. I wish Lapua's was as cheap as it was a couple years ago when it was like $50 a box, but now it's like $80 or $90 a box, and I'm not going to pay $1 a round for brass for a plinking rifle. For my 243 Ackley, yeah, I pay like $1.50 a round for my small rifle primer 260 Remington brass, but that's worth it, and I'll have that for a bunch of firings, which is great. So anyways, like I just got into, right, there's a monetary investment in this as well, and that kind of goes into something we'll cover in a minute. Let's keep talking about fun stuff. My experiences with wildcats, I personally shoot, or I have been shooting 22 Creedmoor since before you could get factory ammunition, so I'd count that as a wildcat. I personally also have shot or loaded for 223 Ackley. I've done the PRCW. I have done the 243 Ackley, like we mentioned, and man, I know, the 6 PRC, that's a good one. The 22 GT, I would definitely count that as a wildcat. No one's making factory ammunition for it yet. Man, there have got to be some other ones that I'm forgetting, but I've loaded for a decent amount, so I mean, I feel like I'm versed in this. And from my experience, you come onto some things like, that are unexpected hardships. Like for the 6 PRC, like the case necks were super thick and I had to trim them, which sucked. I wasn't a huge fan of that. Necking it down from 6.5 PRC brass. When I was shooting 284 Winchester, which technically is not a wildcat, right? But for a while, the only way that you could form 284 Winchester brass was from Lapua 6.5 by 284 Lapua brass. And I did that, and one of the very, very common issues is they form a donut in the neck when you use a mandrel to expand it up to 7mm. That was a crappy thing. I didn't expect to happen. Granted, and some guys will know you can't shoot it with the donut, and that's what I did. I just left the donut in. I just shot the shit out of those cases. Still got pretty good accuracy with it, but I wouldn't recommend that. But those are some things that can happen when you're forming brass into wildcats. You can split cases, you can fold in shoulders, you can do all kinds of damage to things, which you would never think. And then, you got to go back to the drawing board, and you have to, figure out how you're going to form these cases. If you are able to size something to use as a case, or if you're able to fire form a parent case in your rifle's chamber. Some of the different ways guys form cases: hydro forming, fire forming, and like the cream of wheat method, fire forming, which is basically grabbing a case, and normally this would be like a new piece of brass, or a case that's been sized, right? But one that's been primed, and you grab that primed case and you put a small amount of pistol powder or shotgun powder in the case, and then you fill the case up with cream of wheat, and you put in the top of the case a little ball of tissue or something like that, and you shoot it in your rifle. And that pressure from it having to push out the cream of wheat basically fires it like a bullet, and it forms the case to the chamber. Really messy. I don't recommend it. I've done it. I did a few hundred rounds with it. It actually gets barrels super hot, and if you're doing that and it's going to heat up the throat in your rifle and potentially affect the throat, why not just shoot the rounds? So I'd highly recommend just grab 100 or 200 cases, load them up, and shoot them in the rifle, either for target practice or for varmint practice. I think that's really great, and it's a good way simultaneously to break in the barrel. At least for me, looking at like my 243 Ackley, I'm not counting on that barrel being broken in and kind of settled in until I have about 200 rounds on it. And so that's going to be when I want to start load development anyways. So me grabbing 200 pieces of brass and firing them in that barrel to get it broken in, I have no problems with. I'd rather do that and not have the issue of maybe like my chamber getting dirty, like during that fire forming process with the cream of wheat method. So that is my personal opinion. And then the hydroforming is kind of a cool concept, and Hornady actually makes custom hydroforming dies. If you ever need to get one made, you can go on their website if you Google it. And these hydroforming dies basically they go on top of a single stage reloading press, like an RCBS rock chucker or one of the Lee single stage presses. I personally am running a Forester coax right now, and I absolutely would not chuck this up into the coax and hit it like I'm going to describe. But basically, you grab this forming die and you put it into the top of your single stage press, and then they give you a shell holder, but the shell holder will not have a hole in the bottom of it. And so you insert that on the ram, and you will end up grabbing a unfired piece of brass. You're going to put a fired primer in the primer pocket and seat it, and then you're going to put that case on the shell holder in the ram, and you're going to grab normally like a dropper, and you're going to drop water on the case, and you have to make sure the whole case is dry, but you have to fill the case up to the mouth with water, and then you slowly put the ram up into the hydroforming die. And on the top, when you have the ram up all the way, it gives you basically a little ram that you are going to put in the top of the case mouth. And then you're going to hit it with a hammer, and this bright little metal rod is going to force the water, when it's hit, to form the case to the forming die, which is basically cut to whatever forming chamber you need. So like for me, for 243 Ackley, it would mimic a 243 Ackley chamber. You pull it out of the forming die, you full-length size it with whatever corresponding die you need, and then you shoot it. Just the bad part, and this kind of goes hand in hand with the cream of wheat method, normally the hydroforming dies don't fully form the case. The case is like 90% formed. So for like an Ackley case, it probably wouldn't have a very sharp 40-degree shoulder up until the first firing, which, again, is it an issue? No, because, and again, we talked about this in the previous podcast, right? Virgin brass that's never been fired should still have a light load fired on it. That's kind of like the inherent thing that guys are talking about with it seems to case harden the case head of the piece of brass where the primer pocket is, allowing you to push higher pressures than if it was just very, virgin brass that had not been work hardened at all. And now, granted, right, work hardening for our neck shoulder junction, not good. Work hardening for the case head where the primer pocket is. Apparently, yeah, makes sense that it may cause that brass to be harder and allow for higher pressures. That does kind of make sense. So if we're going off of that logic, then having a hydroformed case that still has not actually been fired and needs to be fired, a first time through, for the case hardening to occur in the case head, along with finishing off the 95 or 90% formed case, doesn't seem like that bad of an issue. And then along with it being a new barrel, most likely on a new rifle, you're going to use those couple hundred rounds to break in the barrel, which is all not bad. You'll have once fired cases with a barrel with 200 rounds on it, which is definitely broken in. Give it a good cleaning. Give that brass a good anneal, go full-length size it, use whatever mandrel you need to for whatever corresponding side. Normally, I'm a 2000s guy. I like 2000s of neck tension. And get after it, right? Whatever bullet it is, it doesn't hurt to start 20,000s from your jam point. So figure out wherever that bullet is jammed into your rifling at whatever cartridge overall length that is, and back it off 20,000s and just start a pressure ladder. And I normally, when I'm doing pressure ladders, I go with, for me, for 243 Winchester, looking at that data for a 243 Ackley Improved, I basically just started with just a standard in-the-middle book load. So, if it was with an 80 grain bullet and let's say the load was, 42 grains max of H4350, and I'm not saying that this is an actual load, so do not load this. But picking a mill load would be like if it was a 38 grain load for the lowest velocity, listed in whatever book you're looking at, and the highest load was 42 grains, I would probably split it and go 40 grains for whatever load I was looking at. For like if it was a 243 Winchester load, and I was going to do it as a Fireform load for my 243 Ackley. You also, if you want to be extra safe, you can, and I've done this for other cartridges that there was like no reloading data for. I would start with a lighter bullet, and I would just do an actual pressure ladder with the Fireforming load. So I would start with, like the lowest listed book load for whatever. So like the lowest listed book load for a 243 Winchester for whatever grain of bullet I was shooting. Shoot that, and then work up until I hit pressure, so I kind of know, and then just back it down. You want this to be a very mild load. Normally, a mild Fireforming load is easily going to be like the middle of a book, like comparative for that bullet weight, whatever you're shooting for that cartridge. But successes with the Ackleys, I feel like I have had plenty, and I do enjoy it. Probably my favorite Ackley case so far is the 223 Ackley, and that's just due to the fact that like the more and more I get into shooting, the more and more I want to shoot, just because more trigger time. I feel like I am learning more and more positionally shooting, shooting in the wind, stuff like that. It feels much better the more that I do it at distance. But like it gets expensive with projectiles, it gets expensive with maintenance and barrels and everything else. So trying to find a cartridge that has capabilities to reach out and touch steel out at 800-900 yards, even 1,000, that can run hand in hand with like my 6mm GT or soon to be my 7mm Ackley Improved, which I'm going to run with 180s. You're looking at kind of a faster cartridge to track with like the trajectory of like those 7mm 180s or the 112 grain match burners that I'm shooting out of that 6 GT, and like lo and behold, shooting those little 80 grain ELDMs at 3,100 feet a second tracks pretty damn close out to about 800 or 900 yards with both those match cartridges, which is great. Granted, the wind hold is drastically different, but it tracks pretty similar out to about 800 or 900 yards for holds, which is awesome. And it really does give a capability for like me, right? I don't want to be boring completely. Normally, when I'm trying to practice shooting long range, it's at like a hunting ranch, and we're trying to shoot squirrels and rabbits at distance to try to practice. We do sit out steel plates and do shit like that, but normally when I'm shooting plates, it's at a PRS match or if I'm out of training. And so from a hunting standpoint, it is very, very, very entertaining having a basically 22 Creedmoor similar ballistics out of a 223 case, which is awesome. And then there's another variant, which I definitely should mention because I am very interested in it. I just fucking hate the idea of having to hydroform a case, and that is the 223 PRS Moses. So it's 223 P as in Paul, R as in Robert, S as in Sam, PRS, and then Moses. M as in Mary, O as in Ocean, S as in Sam, E as in Edward, S as in Sam. Moses, Moses. And this guy has a bunch of Wildcat cartridges that are being kind of talked about right now. He also has I believe it's a 6mm PRS Moses. And so basically it is a 6x223 Ackley. But he has pushed the shoulder way forward compared to where the normal PO Ackley, 223 Ackley shoulder sits. So it actually has greater case capacity than the 223 Ackley that I'm running. Very interesting case. I would love to actually do it. Just the bad part is you have to hydroform the cases as it currently sits. But very capable as well. Cartridge for just for reference. But the loads that I'm hopefully going to shoot coming up with these 223 Ackleys that I have is going to be hopefully 3,000 feet a second with my 88 grain ELDMs out of a 26-inch barrel, and then hopefully like 3,100 feet a second with the 80 grain ELDMs out of a 26-inch barrel. The 88 grain are going to be shot out of a 1-in-7 twist, and the 80s will be shot out of a 1-in-8 twist 223 Ackley. But that is hands down like one of my favorite rifles to shoot, because I've always kind of frowned upon the 223 as it's not a super capable cartridge. So being able to do reloads for this and have it, what I believe, very capable, it is really, really cool to see. And it's very, very fun to shoot. Low recoil, not very loud. Sad part, didn't suppress as well as I thought it was going to, and I think that might just be the fact that, there's not a lot of pressure coming out of my barrel. And granted, like, if someone knows more about this, I'd love to hear it, but, shooting suppressed ARs that are chambered in 5.56 or, 223 Wild, for some reason it always seems like, they're still pretty snappy, like I still want to wear ears with a suppressor. When I got a bolt action 223, I was so excited because I was like, wow, this is going to sound great suppressed. And I actually feel like it's still pretty loud compared to my 243 Ackley suppressed. My 243 Ackley suppressed sounds amazing. It sounds way better than my 223 Ackley, which is upsetting. But still a great cartridge. It's one that I look forward to shooting the shit out of. And at the time, for, more velocity, but in this 20 or .224 caliber, discussing, with my personal experiences, 22 Creedmoor, super fun. That was one of those cartridges of like, hey, give me more case capacity because I want to do more in a short platform. So I had an 18-inch barrel 22 Creedmoor, I had two 20-inch, and then I had a 26-inch. And so the 18-inch, I was running 88 grain ELDMs at 3,100 feet a second, and that was suppressed in an XLR 4.0 Element chassis. With the folder, that was a sweet little rifle. I really, really enjoyed that one, and I ended up selling that off. And then I ended up doing a 20-inch build off of a Howa 1500, which I was running basically the exact same load, but it was running at 3,150. So with that extra 2 inches, I gained 50 feet per second. And I ran that on a thermal gun for a bit, suppressed, which was fun. And again, it puts fucking huge holes in coyotes, man. Like really, really, really big holes. It's a very flat shooting rifle, which is awesome. And those 88 grain ELDMs, have a BC that's basically better than 105 grain Berger, which is very impressive. I think at the point, if I'm not mistaken, it's like 0.55 with a G1 BC. So another great wildcat experience right now. It's definitely more common, and I'm not sure people would consider it a wildcat because there's factory ammunition for it, but at one point there was not. And then the 243 Ackley, kind of my heart into this whole thing with getting into precision rifles and shooting long range and stuff. Super capable cartridge. Whether you're shooting lead projectiles or non-lead projectiles, it is very, very capable. I don't feel like it has a crazy recoil report, and I feel like it is very, very versatile with the bullets that you can shoot with it. Granted, shooting a faster twist so I can shoot the monolithic copper bullets is kind of required, but if you're shooting the lead bullets, shooting a 1-in-8 twist for the 243 Ackley is pretty easy, and you can shoot basically anything with a 1-in-8 twist. I know a lot of guys run 1-in-7 and 1-in-7.5s in their 6 Creedmoors, but in reality, if you check, at least it used to be listed, unless something changed, on Berger's website for their 115 grain VLDs, they're stabilized with a 1-in-8. And then the 112 grain Barnes match burners are stabilized with a 1-in-8 twist. DTACs, I've stabilized in a 1-in-8 twist. Great cartridge. I really enjoy it. It's kind of weird though. I definitely think that running in a 22-inch barrel, you're doing great. In a 26, I've run them in all the way down to an 18-inch barrel. A 22 felt really good for me for a hunting barrel. It felt like it was able to basically get the max amount of velocity for the bullets I was shooting. I was running the 112 grain match burners at 2950 out of a 22-inch barrel. And then working up a simultaneous load in a 26-inch barrel, I was still only able to get 2950 Anything, above that in, the range of 3,100 or 3,050 feet per second, I was getting really weird pressure signs. So that bullet just kind of comfortably shot for me at 2950 in either rifle. And then I will say that, me moving to a different projectile, the McGuire Ballistics 93 grain copper rose, they do like to run fast. Sam has guys that are running 20-inch 6mm Creedmoors. They're running those bullets at I think 3,450 to 3,400 feet a second with H4350 out of 20-inch barrel 6 Creedmoors. So with me, out of a 26-inch 1-in-7 twist 243 Ackley, I have them up at 3,600 feet per second, which is definitely a hot load. I have gone a little bit above this, and then I hit an ejector swipe, so I backed down half a grain. So basically, if it stays below 90 degrees, I'm completely fine. If it goes above 90, I definitely start showing pressure signs, which is good to know for me, but I like pushing it. Again, that's why I got into doing the wildcatting thing, is I want max velocity, man. I want stuff to get the shit knocked out of it. That's why I'm doing this. So I'm not sure if this helped, negated, or, was beneficial for you guys. If there is a specific cartridge that you guys would like to hear more about, please let me know. But I hope this gave you guys insight on the benefits and negatives, or just the responsibilities that, you're going to take on by getting into shooting a wildcat or non-factory cartridge. Regardless how much of a wildcat that cartridge is, right? Whether it's like a 22 Creedmoor, which is pretty simple, just necking down a 6 Creedmoor case, or if it's something as complicated as hydroforming like the 223 Moses, or if it's as complicated as fireforming like any of the PO Ackley cases. It's definitely an endeavor to take on, but again, it's fun. If this is like the thing you're really into, it is very fun. And if you're going to shoot a bunch, like me, if I wanted to come out and I was set that I wanted to shoot, thousands of rounds of 243 Winchester a year, why not go through the hassle of, rather than doing a standard, shooting an Ackley to get the additional benefit? Regardless what bullet I was shooting, I could have been shooting the 55 grain or 58 grain, varmint bullets that Winchester makes, or any of those. Just me getting additional case capacity definitely would help, right? And any of the other benefits, like guys talk about with the Ackley, is if the case doesn't grow as much, and whatever other nonsense mumbo jumbo shit they talk about with the Ackleys, those would all be beneficial. So if you're going to do something like that, why not? If it's going to help, great. But again, this is all personal preference. Not saying you need to, not saying you should. This is kind of my journey and why I ended up here doing what I am with my wildcat cartridges. And these are things that I'm going to probably shoot for a really, really long time. And they're, things that I really enjoy. And I'd say that anyone who's going to get involved with it probably would end up having a good time. And I do think they are reloader friendly. I don't think I've had a huge issue with any of these wildcats so far that I've mentioned. They're pretty friendly if you get into reloading and, have just kind of a gist if you knowing what you're doing. I think it'd be beneficial. But again, all personal preference. If there's anything I missed or anything you guys think would be beneficial for new reloaders or guys wanting to get into a custom cartridge, please bring it up in the comments, and man, I'll gladly try to talk about it if I know something about it. If not, do my own research, and maybe even get someone involved who knows more than me and have them on here in the podcast as well. All right, guys, thank you for tuning in for Wildcat Wednesday. Again, if you guys are going to buy any rifle parts or any precision rifle parts, barrels, optics, tripods, bipods, go check out PRS Rifle Stuff or T3 Optics. You guys can find them on Instagram, or if you guys Google it. And if you guys want some other entertaining-ass motherfuckers who kill a ton of shit, go check out O'Neill Ops for either their podcast or YouTube stuff. And they also post a lot of entertaining shit on Instagram. If you guys want to check out some badass rifle builds, go check out Amantine on YouTube, or check him out on Instagram as well. And I know I'm going to harp on this like fucking crazy. Go out and take a rifle shooting course. If you're into this, you guys want to get out and go shoot long distance, go look up and go take a long distance rifle shooting course in your guys' local area. I know it may seem overwhelming, and it may be like, man, I really don't want to fucking go do that. I promise it's going to be a good time and you're going to learn a ton of shit, and it's really going to improve your accuracy, whether it's just for target shooting or for hunting. And if it's for hunting, right, it's better being an ethical hunter. So get out, enjoy the outdoors, have a great time. Thank you for tuning in, and please subscribe. If you guys haven't already, please go look us up on YouTube, subscribe, and then you can find us on Instagram under Bench Talk, and you can also find us on Apple Podcasts along with Spotify and YouTube. Thanks, guys.